It's Sunday, a day normally reserved for Jesus and naps, but that certainly was not the case for this frigid Sunday morning. The first thing that was off was my hubby, Jason, wouldn't be home. Once a year, he heads north to run a club wrestling tournament that in the past I would actually travel with him and use the time as a little getaway for the two of us. Wrestling season is a busy time for our household. We currently have 2 high school wrestlers in 2 different divisions. One, Shauna's obviously the boy division and Madeline's the girl division, and they have only had one meet in the same location this year. So our calendar is full going to meets to support them as often as we can, which happens more for Jason than it does for me because he helps coach our daughter's wrestling team. He also travels a lot to run tournaments. Believe me when I say it's in his blood. And football, and track, and just kidding, that's all he coaches. But because this season is busy, we historically have used that club tournament as our reconnect weekend to get away from the homestead. But it's quite a feat to get all the things in our life to align so that each and every one of our responsibilities are taken care of while we are gone. Speaking of life, how about a little introduction? I'm Abby, known in this space as the gal down the road. This is where I share the stirrings of my heart as a wife and a mother, and now a grandmother. That still blows my mind. It's where I share what life is like homesteading on the Nebraska prairie and living multi-generational with a whole lot of Jesus woven through this thing that is my life. I'm so very glad and honored you're here because I know time is precious and you probably could be doing something else. So I'm so honored that you are here. This year, when our weekend reconnect rolled around, it landed smack dab in the middle of breeding our dairy cows. Not something that you can push back or reschedule. When it's time, it's time. Which brings me to the second thing that was off on this frigid Sunday morning. 2 of our cows needed bread. Not something we would tackle on a Sunday, ever. We don't do any business on Sundays if we can help it because it's our day of rest and we don't expect anyone else to do business on Sunday either. But a winter storm shifted everything around. Natural activity wasn't going to be a thing, and when it was clear the process would carry us into Sunday, things got thrown through a loop. And we are so blessed that our AI guy was gracious enough to come out and help me get that done before both he and I needed to head off and get to church. One more off thing. When we were cattle on the homestead, it's all of us meaning my dad, Jason, and I, and anyone else who's handy, but usually it's just the 3 of us. But Jason had needed to get on the road as soon as the morning feeding chores were done, and my dad is a minister and his pastoral responsibilities had already taken him away from the homestead. So this time around, I was flying solo. Next up on the off chart is because we AI'd that morning, it pushed my milking time back, which made me later getting back to the house. There was about, I think, maybe 10 minutes for me to get myself ready and get to town in time for the high school Sunday school class I teach. Alas, it had to be canceled. I believe in miracles, but I cannot tame my unruly mane or teleport. Do I need to even mention the fact I'm full on frazzled mode by this point? Not frazzled, angry, or even frustrated. I was just frazzled. Instead of staying in that cycle, I knew I needed to do something that would slow that roll, and something that felt slow and productive, something that connected me to our home and would feel like I was taking care of my family. So I made bread. I know, I can hear your face. Seriously, bread? Yes, seriously, bread. And not just any bread, mind you, buttermilk bread. And this may ruffle some homemaker feathers. I made it in my bread machine. I know, gasp. Did you know that there is a whole slew of arguments out there that food prepared any other way than by your hands or your stove are not homemade? Yeah, what a bunch of tripe. So those of you using a bread machine or an Instapot or a crock pot, I mean, the list could literally keep going, right? Keep on keeping on. No one has given me the authority to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's homemade. Keep making that wholesome food for your family. Knowing I used a bread machine, it probably makes more sense how I would have time to make bread. The ingredients and process is quick and easy, very streamlined, and your family will love it. Well, mine sure does, so I'm hoping yours will too. The first thing I did though was I changed my clothes into my church clothes. That may sound counterproductive because when working with flour, it is inevitable that it will end up everywhere. Am I right? Or is that just me? This is usually the case for me, but today I'm being extra careful because I suffer from chrono-optimism. I usually think I have more time than I really do. I get involved in whatever I'm working on, and I try to fit that one last thing in, and before I know it, I'm late. It's just, I think it's in my DNA. I really do. And the way this morning has been going, I will most definitely relapse. So let's talk buttermilk. Buttermilk is what is left over when you make butter. I made a whole video on how I make butter for our family using the raw milk from our micro dairy. You're welcome to check it out if you're so inclined. I will put a link to that video so you can keep your eye out for that. I think you can purchase buttermilk in some areas, like in a grocery store, but more than likely it will be pasteurized and ingredients added back into it to give it that tangy taste buttermilk is known for. Real quick, I wanted to share with you a little tip I picked up somewhere along my learning to cook journey. Is to use your whisk as your sifter. You just put your whisk in your flour container and then you shake it over your bowl. Easy peasy sifting. Going back to the things that can be added back into the buttermilk after it's pasteurized, it could be flavorants also to give it a more, or to enhance the butter flavor. The packaging will probably say something like cultured buttermilk. I know in some areas of our country and pretty much the entire country of Canada, raw dairy is illegal, which just blows my mind because we're talking about milk here, people. But I will not go on a rant. I will restrain myself for now. Historically, and the way I use my raw buttermilk is I let it set out on my counter overnight the night before I'm going to use it. It acquires like a delicious tangy flavor due to the naturally occurring souring caused by bacteria. Now, don't let that word scare you. We are surrounded by a world of good and bad bacteria. We've just been conditioned to think all bacteria is bad. So to overcome that, or to understand it better, you need to educate yourself. Don't rely on everybody else. You need to educate yourself. Knowledge is something that can't be taken away from you. So I promise that if you educate yourself as best as you can, find trusted sources, you'll feel so much better when the bacteria subject comes up, and it will. I promise you it will. Here are the ingredients you'll need to make the bread machine version of my buttermilk bread recipe. You'll need 1.5 cups of buttermilk, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, but I add 2 teaspoons of salt, and 3.5 cups of bread flour, and 1 tablespoon of yeast. Which brings me to today's episode supporter, where you can find this recipe and so much more. I'm pretty excited to share it with you. It's our very own magazine called Our Living Journal. It was inspired by my family's desire to live a life with purpose, on purpose. It started as a stirring in 2019 and became an act of obedience when our first entry was printed in the winter of 2020. In the pages of the journal, we share our lives on the homestead, what we learn, just the knowledge that we gain through this whole process, and we invite others to join us who can teach and inspire us all to live a frugal, creative life with skills passed down over time that have almost been forgotten. And it's our hope, by bringing back these lost skills, that will ignite and equip an entire generation and those to follow with tips, DIYs, tried and true wholesome recipes, animal husbandry, natural ways of living, and everything homesteading from the kitchen to the land. You can get practical encouragement and inspiration delivered right to your mailbox, and you can check out Our Living Journal at our website, foundationhomestead.com. Just look for Our Living Journal up at the top. I'll also put the link in the description that will take you right there. I'm excited to share this with you, and I hope you get your hands on a copy of the journal. Now let's get back to our bread. I would suggest taking your bread pan out of the machine and putting it on the counter, and then adding all the ingredients in that way so that you don't accidentally spill anything down on the heating element. And the way the ingredients go into your bread pan is the list of how I read them all. I know not all bread machines are the same, but I do think they all have a white bread setting. So that's the setting that I use on mine. I use the 2-pound with medium crust. Medium is how dark the crust will be. So once all your ingredients are measured and you put your bread pan back into the machine, all you have to do is push start and go on with your day, or in my case, go to church. One more thing that will help this off Sunday get back on track. Today was about my heart posture, and I felt off because of circumstances. And a big part of it was the fact that my hubby wasn't going to be here. My dad calls him the linchpin. He tells people this whole thing, this whole living multi-generational, only works because of him. Jason, I'm not sure he agrees with that statement, but I sure do. He's not only the linchpin for the homestead, he's a vital piece of me. And when he's absent from the things I'm so used to us doing side by side, I feel off. I rely on him a lot, but there's one thing I cannot expect out of him, and that's keeping my emotions in check. Proverbs 25:28 says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." I think people read this verse and relate it to self-control, like self-control with food, or like controlling your mindset when you're working out so you can push yourself a little farther and do one more rep. But not a lot probably think of being self-controlled as in maintaining control of your emotions. And we females are designed to be emotional creatures. God gave us all of these emotions, male and female, all of these emotions. They aren't bad, and they should not be feared. But if you take anything from this video besides a stellar buttermilk bread recipe, it's this. Emotions are good servants, but they are horrible masters. I'm going to repeat it. Emotions are good servants, but they are horrible masters. I mean, just look at our world. Look how dysfunctional it is. It's stark proof of what being mastered by your own emotions looks like. We live in a society where we are told to do what makes us happy, not what makes us holy. There's questions I ask myself when my emotions are all over the place for whatever reason. Maybe they'll help you too, so I'll word it in a way that will engage your brain. These are the questions. Is every emotion you feel valid? Does every emotion you feel need validation? It's been my experience, this is what I have found, that by asking myself these questions, the chances of me spiraling into the pit of despair and having a full-on hypothetical argument in my head or flying off the handle becomes less and less, because that's exactly where Satan would like to keep me. That's where he wants you to stay. So asking myself these questions also doesn't allow me to stuff my emotions. Don't do that. Don't stuff your emotions. They have to be dealt with, valid or not. So me asking myself these two questions, I am acknowledging them. An example of what this could look like would be, scenario 1. You've worked super hard on a new recipe that you take to an extended family event. Everybody's bringing dishes, you're going to eat together, and it's barely touched. Nobody takes any of yours, maybe one person. And you become increasingly offended by every person that doesn't take a spoonful of what you brought. How dare they? You spent all this time and energy, and they have the audacity to not eat it. How dare they? Now ask yourself the two questions. Is this emotion valid? Does this emotion need validation? Or another way to say that is, does anyone need to acknowledge my emotion? Okay, so let's take that same scenario, but let's bring it closer to home. Because we've all been in this situation. If by some miracle you haven't experienced this in your role as a mother yet, you will. Okay, so here's the scenario. You've made an amazing meal for your family. The last time you made it, your table was the literal corn scene from What About Bob? You know, the scene about the corn. Is his hand shucked? It was so good, all the things. Everyone loved it and sang their praises while they ate it. But this time, nobody gobbles it down like you expected them to. And God forbid one of those precious, ungrateful little children God gave you, remember, God gave you them, says that they don't like it. Have you been there? How did you react? Was your emotion valid? Did your emotion need validation? Now change the emotion to reaction. Was your reaction valid? This isn't a shame, and sadly, I can't answer these questions for you, mostly because I want you to work through them for yourself. Of course, we feel emotions when these things happen, but you're in control of your own emotions, nobody else. We want somebody to feel them for us, or what I should say, with us, because misery loves company, but that's not always the situation we need or should get. Another reason why I probably can't answer them for you is because there's probably this governing, policing body that would say I'm not qualified. Here's my qualifications. I'm an unapologetic believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother and a daughter and a cousin and a sister and all the things. I'm a youth leader. I'm a friend. And I have a degree in massage therapy that has a concoction of letters after it, but none of that was my point. My point is my husband is my safe place. Where he is, I feel safe enough that I can vomit every little thought I have on him, good or bad. Poor guy. But Jason is not the one in control of my emotions. Emotional control is keeping the walls of my city up, which requires me to lean into and release a lot of things to God. I could have stayed in my spiraling funk. I could have given into that desire to just skip church. It wouldn't feel right without Jason there anyways. But I have a daughter who is also, I'm her example. If I gave in to that desire to not be there, what is that teaching her? And church is such a salve to my soul. I love church. I love my church. And I feel like things are off kilter throughout my week when I don't go, if we miss for whatever reason. And that would have just given Satan an even bigger stronghold in my day. And not today, Satan. Not today. If I could drop a parenting tip right here, it's start teaching your child emotional control as early as possible. No matter if you just have sons or if you just have daughters, this is not sex specific. It's sons or daughters, start as early as possible. It's hard work. You're gonna feel like you're talking to a brick wall and you want to pull your hair out. It will test you, but be diligent. God made you their parent for a reason. That was not by mistake. You are their parent for a reason. Don't ever forget that. God does not make mistakes. So tell me your thoughts on that in the comments. I love constructive conversation. So just leave that in the comment. I would love to have a conversation with you. But if you don't have children, that doesn't leave you out. This is something that I think everyone could benefit. That's my personal opinion. And it needs to be revisited often. Working on ourselves is also extremely hard work. And it's a continual evolvement, continual process. There's no such thing as perfection this side of heaven. So we are constantly in a state of learning and changing and becoming the versions of ourselves that God designed us to be. Today, I started out pretty frazzled. I think even before my feet hit the floor, I was frazzled because I could just see my circumstances. And it was hard work to not just give in and throw up my hands. And I had to fight that urge to crawl back into bed because it felt like that would have been easier, but the consequences would have been costly. What it required me to do was to pray about it and to give it to God. And slowly, all the red flags I have become familiar with as I've focused on emotional control over the years were a little easier to recognize, but I had to make a decision. Would I be obedient and honoring? And I had to ask myself a new question. I know this one's full of questions. I had to ask myself a new question. How can I be obedient? What do I need to do in the next 5 minutes to remain obedient? What do I need to do in the next 10 minutes to remain obedient? If I would have crawled back in bed, I would have missed a good sermon that sparked some very special, deep conversations between my daughter and I. I wouldn't have gotten 4 loaves of buttermilk bread made, nor a pot of kielbasa potato soup that ended up feeding 11 people. I wasn't expecting my table to be that full. I don't always have control of my emotions. I'm an emotional creature who is imperfect. Some days I have it all together. Some days I live on the edge and work with flour with my church clothes on. Hey, I didn't have to change my clothes, so that's one small victory for the day. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll meet you back here next time, right down the road.
This is some really good bread.